Hi, I'm Cameron Murray, and this is the first of my two tool discussions. So the first one I'm going to do is Duolingo. Duolingo is basically a language learning app. There is also a web-based version where you can use the web browser to do this, but it's kind of like Rosetta Stone, except it's free and it's web-based, which Rosetta Stone might be now, but it's a little bit different. So basically, you go to duolingo.com, which is the website I'm on right now. I'm going to log in. It is free, as it says there, and that's supposed to be forever. Now, there are a couple different versions of Duolingo. We have the normal version, and then there's also a schools version, if you click down here, where you can set up classrooms with students and assign them different lessons from the normal version. So I'm going to just switch back to the version I was at before because it includes everything except for the added features of adding classes and assigning certain lessons. So this is the basic overview. You can earn things called lingots. I think the app version is called gems. And you can have streaks, so that way maintaining a streak adds some experience bonus, and you can set limits basically to the amount of experience you want to learn per day, or goals rather. So it's pretty encouraging for students. And as we look down through this, you can see there are a lot of different images for each lesson, and I think it's pretty engaging, colorful. If we switch back here, I also think that it was pretty simple. The pictures are clear, they describe exactly what the lesson's about. It's aesthetically pleasing and very readable. So as you can see, I think all of those things apply to this. For the next category, learning paths, I think it follows relatively the same path, so there aren't really too many options. So as you start, you take the basics, move on to the word the definite article, and then you open up the next two, and so on. So it follows pretty much the same path. You can test out of areas, so in that way it does allow you to personalize the pathway. You can also purchase enrichment lessons. These two are enrichment lessons, so you can have idioms and flirting, which are add-ons. And by purchase, you don't actually pay. You earn lingots through the language learning feature, and then you can buy things with that. As far as interactive elements go, I think it's pretty easy to interact. There are click, drag, etc. type features. So if we just click on a lesson here, here I'm typing.
Ich bin Hans.
Here we can drag, so I'm dragging the characters up now.
Ich bin Julia.
And so on. Another nice thing is that it's speaking to you, and there are also times when you can speak to it, so it will tell you something to say, and you say it, and it assesses you, so it's nice that it has that as well. I forgot to mention the last two, but I am ranking these out of 5, and for interactive elements I gave it a 5. The previous I gave it a 3, and then another 5. As far as assessment elements goes, I have this at a 4 out of 5. There's a lot of variety, as I just mentioned there with the assessment: multiple choice, fill in the blanks, full sentence, listening, speaking. But I don't think there's a lot of room to be creative, so the students themselves producing unique sentences, it prompts them with translations, basically. For the user interface, I gave it a 5 out of 5. It's easy to see, easy to use, easy to understand. The navigation is logical and sequential. So as we go through this, scrolling down, it's very sequential, and it adds on to previous lessons as you go. The adaptive engines, I gave it a 3 out of 5. You have to master things before you move on. There is a gold status, which you can see on, so there are some crowns here, and then the gold status here. Those do eventually go away, which I think is nice because it prompts the students to review. But overall, I think the personalization of the pathway is very limited. The schools version, as I mentioned, does allow the teacher to assign different lessons, so it does to some degree allow the student to change his or her pathway, but it relies mostly on the teacher's manual manipulation of their pathway. Interoperability, I gave it a 1 out of 5. The data doesn't really leave Duolingo. You can access it and potentially manually transfer it somehow, but it doesn't communicate with other programs at this time. I guess there's the possibility that it will eventually, but I gave that only a 1 out of 5. As far as the cognitive load goes, I don't think it's overloaded. The progression through the levels separates and eases the load for the students, so they're not feeling overwhelmed by the amount of information. And I think it's a relatively simple process each time. For data collection, I gave it a 3 out of 5. Specifics of the students' assessments are limited. You can really only see the score from what I could tell. And even seeing that, I mean, it doesn't tell me that much. It tells me the score of each lesson, and then I can see that over time, which is the nice thing because I can see growth and improvement. But I feel like it could be improved upon with data collection, or rather data transmission to the teacher. I do believe it is self-paced because you can move through each one. It's definitely based on performance and mastery. If you don't master it or test out of it, you can't really move on. You are given 3 lives per lesson, and if you don't make that cut, then you have to redo that lesson until you master it. And as I mentioned before, there are some enrichment lessons, which kind of allows for the pacing again for the students. Lastly, for Duolingo, I have the Universal Design for Learning. I ranked this a 9 out of 9 based on the 3 different subcategories for each of the 3 categories. So engagement, I said that it did meet the options for recruit interest. I think the variety of different ways is definitely engaging for students. Sustaining efforts and persistence, it provides the lingets and the streaks, which I think also helps to sustain student persistence. And it kind of gives them that feedback immediately, so that's helpful as well. For self-regulation, I also said there's a lot of options for that. Students are able to go in and see which words that they are missing or which ones they get frequently wrong, or as I said before, over time, you'll see here with the key, it's saying that it's overdue. So even words that you might still know, they're saying that needs more review, so it does allow for more goal setting and self-regulation. For representation, I gave perception a yes, language and symbols a yes, and comprehension also a yes, because it allows for a lot of customization of how students interact with the language, and it allows for them to activate prior knowledge because of the lessons building on one another. Lastly, action and expression. I said physical action, yes, expression and communication, yes, and yes to executive functions, because it again varies the way that students respond, so they can use multiple different medias. They can speak, they can listen to it and record information, click and drag. I think that they did a pretty good job varying that as well. Just a few last things here. Overall, I gave Duolingo an 80%, so I said that it met 47 of the 59 points that I tallied up. And I think when considering the textbook and what we were talking about in this chapter regarding modular versus integrated, I think that Duolingo would definitely have to work more as a as part of a modular system as opposed to integrated. It doesn't offer everything. But it's definitely a valuable resource for a teacher using a modular system and can provide a lot of different language activities depending on what the students are learning. My next tool discussion will be with Deutsche Welle, Warum nicht? And I will be uploading that soon. Thank you.